Alright, welcome back to another day at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and despite the fact that I've got my helmet in my hand, the title of the video would suggest that we're about to do a road drive, so stick with the video, that's all I'll say. But today is an incredible opportunity because this is the first touring in the UK, which means it currently has 35 miles on the clock. It is fresh out of the box. It's so fresh that Porsche have told me to not go full send up the hill, don't perhaps wring its neck out at the full 9,000 RPM for some mechanical sympathy. But today, we will take this thing on the road, despite the fact that we're going to take it up the hill climb first. I'm just fascinated, actually, from a manual point of view. Despite the fact that they've launched this car for the first time as a touring in both PDK and manual, this is the manual version. Those of you that follow the channel regularly will be aware that we have the luck and fortune of daily driving a 991 Gen 2 GT3 at the moment. We've set ourselves a goal of doing 100,000 miles in that car, and I want to know what they've changed and augmented in the manual gearbox department to make this thing feel any different. So we'll explain that to you as we go up the hill. Yeah, hop on board. Let's go and take this thing for a drive. This car will have been signed off personally by Mr. Preuninger back at the Porsche GT division, and it's so fresh that Porsche have kindly asked me not to give it the full red line because the engine hasn't really been bedded in yet. I mean, it's literally on 36 miles right now. So as far as fresh tourings go, first one in the UK hasn't even gone through a tank of fuel yet, because while it doesn't have a wing on the back of it, I just wanted to see how the gearbox compares, how the clutch compares, the dynamics of it compares. The most immediate observation is the clutch pedal has become lighter, even lighter. Now, the trend here is from 997 to 991, things got lighter, but I didn't expect the clutch to get lighter from 991 to 992 because it was already a pretty friendly clutch. But sure enough, that is an effortless depression right there. And casually while we sit here, there is a Singer DLS in front of us. This is Goodwood right here. This for me is Goodwood. It's the most eclectic and stunning group of cars in one location that you could, never mind wish for, dream about. Now here we go. Let me just point you down here. This is why Festival of Speed is so special, because as we tail a Singer DLS, we're going past the latest, greatest cars from the majority of manufacturers in the world today. Casual Aston Martin Valkyrie right there. We have a V12 Speedster right there. Look at this new Corvette C8. Chiron Pure Sport, Huayra, Zenvo, new McLaren Artura, new McLaren Elva, McLaren GT, some crazy Lancia Resto mod, Maserati MC20, 765 LT, Dawn. It just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? Alright, seamless transition. Got the skid lid on. And we're about to send it up the Goodwood Festival of Speed hill climb in the brand new 992 GT3 Touring. Tailing the DLS. Just thought I'd put that in there one more time. Alright, there goes the DLS. The line of the Touring. This is almost as nerve-wracking as starting on the grid of a race. Only more spectators. Still sounds lovely. The pickup is wonderful. I don't feel like stopping at the top of here. I feel like keeping on going. I know what you're thinking. Seamless transition. Not only have we jumped from a blue car to a silver car, from a right-hand drive car to a left-hand drive car, but also from a manual to a PDK. But that's what this channel is all about. We like to bring you some variety. But honestly, I'm actually really excited to be bringing you both a brief impression of the manual experience up the hill, but also this is what the news is about, really. It's the first time that Porsche have optioned a PDK gearbox available for the Touring package. Now, before we get into the driving characteristics of the car, I'm just going to share somewhat of my controversial impression of the Touring. You see, in the 991, it seemed to have developed this sort of subculture that it's some sort of hero car, and I get it, it's very cool, but let's not beat around the bush. They just pulled the wing off a GT3. Why it has been classed as this other product category is beyond me, because the Touring doesn't offer anything different to a GT3. It just has no wing. So, the reason I'm interested in this is because the PDK arguably adds perhaps a different dynamic to the purpose of the car. You see, beforehand, it being only available in a manual, it sort of set the tone for that car, but is it not more of a Touring having a more effortless driving nature with the option of an automatic box? You see, you get into town after you've woven your way through the Alps and you knock it over into auto and you just chill and you swan around in an effortless Touring nature. Still got no cage in the back, so you can still put your bags in the back of that disproportionately practical cave back there, but the option of a PDK for me in a Touring has added an additional dynamic to the proposition of the car. However, fundamentally, they're still exactly the same car. There's no changes in suspension. I was sort of hoping that maybe to give it more of a different use case proposition, Porsche might sort of soften off the ride just a little bit, because the Touring for me has never necessarily been about track focus, because they've pulled off the wing and reduced an element of that track bias nature. Is that not therefore a little bit more of a road bias car? So the only main differentiating factor is the fact that it's now available with a twin clutch box. However, on the flip side of that, we do have the same geometry as the new 992 GT3, which means the front end of this car will adhere to the road with fusion. Honestly, my track drive of the GT3, I was blown away by the amount of grip that front end had as a result of the new double-wishbone front end suspension. The contact patch, the additional contact patch that it affords the front end, means when you turn into something sharp like that, not that you would step out of the 991 GT3 or Touring and go, do you know what, that's got this inherent understeer that the previous generations had. No, with the addition of a rear wheel steer, it was still great, but when you spend time in a 991 and then jump into a 992 GT3, it's just fascinating to see what that additional contact patch of rubber just allows the tyre to sit on the surface with a greater area of contact patch, essentially. And it is a game changer, particularly at higher speeds. Now for me, the gearbox in this, and this is why it was important for me to share both the manual and the PDK, it makes it a more usable proposition. And I've noticed that general customers of Tourings seem to put more miles on them than general owners of GT3s. Now, I daily a manual GT3, so it's weird for me to talk about the daily proposition of a PDK Touring versus a manual car. But honestly, I just think it suits the characteristic of the car. With it having no wing, I think you do approach it with a slightly different mindset. Now, one thing you'd be forgiven for thinking is that on paper, this thing would be so stiff that it would shake the hairs out of your mustache, because it's now running rose-jointed suspension, and that is of course inherited predominantly from the GT3 side of the program, so that it is an absolute ninja on track. However, to ride on the road, it's compliant. I'm on a generic British B road, which inherently are suboptimal in terms of surface quality. And this is fine. I mean, look at my body in this car. I'm not shaking around. There's no like unnecessary jiggling. Technical industry term, that one. So, keeping on the theme of seamless transitions, welcome to your walk and talk interlude of the silver 992 GT3 Touring. I just thought it was important to run you around some of the minor aesthetic changes that are specific to this car, beginning with the front, which is an option introduced on the GT3 Touring, which is body coloured bumpers or splitters or whatever you want to call it. The stuff here that's silver on the GT3 is standard in black, but on the Touring as an option, you can have this painted the same as your body colour. Now, to my eyes, I'm just going to put this out there, on the silver, not sure I particularly like it. There are other colours, darker, which sort of blends in a bit better. The gentian blues, black, etc. Maybe agate grey, that sort of thing works. For some reason, this particular shade of silver, I'm not too keen on this body coloured bumper, but comments below, let me know what you think. And then really, the majority of the changes are around the rear, but on our way over there, you'll also notice the newly introduced optional extra of the carbon fibre roof. This is available both on GT3 and GT3 Touring. And this really is the business end, the defining feature of the Touring, which is the sans wing option. Now also, they have removed the vertical slats which come on the GT3, and they have filled it with a Touring specific mesh indicated with a Touring specific Touring badge. And seeing as we started at the Michelin supercar paddock at the beginning of this video, I thought it's only too right that we should speak about these tyres. Now, these are specifically developed for both GT3 and GT3 Touring, and the reason I think it's important to talk about them is the GT3 just set a Nürburgring lap time of a sub 7-minute lap, which is massive. Now, obviously, a lot of that is due to the revised aero and the improved car overall, but ultimately all of that tech and revised aero gets pushed through the contact patch of these tyres. And now we also have GT3 specific brakes. Now these are 6-piston at the front, 4-piston at the rear. Some did speculate that they might adopt the 10-piston brake calipers from the 992 Turbo S. However, these are a specific development for this car, and because it weighs significantly less than a turbo, it doesn't need those massive 10-piston calipers. And then behold the mildly refined GT3 Touring interior. Now I think, as far as specs go, this is absolutely stunning. It's got the optional carbon fibre inserts, but there is one option which is exclusive to Touring so far, which is the addition of this new sort of tactile material here. It's like a sort of fish scale leather, actually. It's quite nice, and I do love the yellow contrast stitch. Anyway, less of that, let's crack on with the drive. And so what does that new front end translate to? Well, we conveniently find ourselves on one of Chichester's finer roads. It's just, I think the word is confidence. It allows you to pick apart a road like this with such degree of precision that even if you don't know the road that well, it just allows you to flow along it with that added degree of confidence. It really anchors down into the tarmac when you throw on some serious brake pressure. Oh, it just scrubs speed with such force. Because of the rear wheel steer, because of the revised front end suspension, because of the rose joints, because of the bespoke developed Michelin Cup 2 tyres, because of the everything, it's now beginning to feel so composed and almost a lot more like a truly mid-engine supercar rather than a truly rear-engined, over-the-axle pendulum 911. physics car. What I'm talking about is 997 physics, where you could lift off the throttle mid-corner and all of a sudden you better be quick with your wrists to catch the opposite lock. Those days are sort of gone. I mean, now then, I know another topic of concern for many a petrolhead purist is of course the sound of the new 992 GT3 and/or Touring, because it is now subject, sadly, to a fuel particulate filter. However, Porsche being Porsche have said this really isn't a problem. Are you ready? It's just, listen. Okay, so not one to understate a video, but not only have we brought you the manual, brought you a silver one and a black one. Seriously though, I know I commented on it earlier. I'd be fascinated in hearing from you. I'm not sure about this painted bumper. I don't know if it's because that's just what I'm used to from seeing all of the 992 photos so far, but yeah, let me know in the comments below. Regardless of that, fascinating to experience the PDK in touring format. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, kind of fundamentally the same as a GT3, but there is something when you walk over to a GT3 without a wing. There is a subtle mind shift change in that you're just in something that sort of blends into the environment a little bit more easily. Anyway, no doubt we're going to be spending some more time with these cars, and our very own GT3 will be arriving on the channel quite soon. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we shall see you next time. Ciao!